organisations and help them actually identify ways that they can use technology to drive change, that they could start to experiment with the processes that they're using, and also the products that they were building. And my frustration was just, well, I just got sick of it. Who works in a large corporate here? Anyone? About half the room. Who's a consultant in here? Okay, and who's in the wrong meeting? Okay, good. So, what I'm just going to share is some of the tools that I've been using, why I've been frustrated actually with why it is so difficult to drive change in these large corporates, and then also some of the methods that maybe you can hopefully take away and start applying tomorrow. So this is one of my favourite quotes at the moment actually, and I think it's very important for when you start to think about the time that we are in. We're in the information age, things change very fast, technologies change, methodologies change, the market changes. So really the people who are able to learn, like continuously learn, are always going to win. The second you stop having a growth mindset, you start to be closed to the concept that something could be done better, it could be done differently, and open to trying that, you're dead. It's that simple. At a personal level, at a team level, at an organisational level. That is the foundation of a lot of this work that we talk about. Experimentation is key, about finding things that work and don't. If you're not willing to experiment in your daily life, you're in trouble because you can't learn. If you experiment, you learn. It's that simple. Now, these are most of my clients, Fortune 500 companies dotted around the world, and they are struggling. 57% of them are actually disappearing in the last 20 years. Just dead. Used to be a company, doesn't exist anymore. Somebody bought it, all the good people left. The way they are actually trying to grow, 49% of them actually believe they're going to grow through cost reduction. Right, now this is the classic thing. When you focus on costs, costs don't go down, they actually go up. You focus on quality, then costs go down. But companies don't understand that, it's a convoluted thing. Only 29% of them actually believe are going to build new products and services to try and grow. So you look at this, just look at those numbers. What's the personality of these companies? Do they have a growth mindset? Are they defensive? Right. They're just constantly trying to defend what they've got. They generally just have one business model that is massively successful for them, and it's grown, and they're really good at growing it and optimizing it. But they really struggle with trying to find different ways to identify new opportunities and not. Now, when I walk in and talk to a lot of the executives and say, that's great, so what are you doing to drive change in your company? What do you think the first thing they say to me is?
Hire talent.
Sorry?
Hire talent.
Hire talent, yeah, great. We'll hire away at the problem. One company that we're working with trying to do that at the moment.
Create an innovation team.
Get an innovation team, awesome, brilliant.
That's great, that's always working.
Acquire more companies, good. Acquire them, all the good people then leave, brilliant.
Hire a consultant.
Hire a consultant, even worse. No hope of actually driving change. Now the scary thing is actually they say I've got this mobile app that I'm building, and that's and the sad part is apps are already dead, right? Google are already injecting content straight into the search results. Your app is dead, it doesn't matter. In 3 years' time, you'll even start talking to Siri once the new OS X comes out. It's all about content, how it's delivered doesn't matter. Interesting. They're building mobile apps. Now, we come back in the bank, this is what most people are living in. They're in a cubicle farm, where people are grown. You live in your farm, stay in your farm, don't ever leave your farm, you're going to be fine. Up here at the back, whoop, this is the light. One day you'll actually get here. If you're lucky, you can leave the farm and get out of the place. Really scary stats. Gallup surveys, they are used to measure employee happiness and health. They are at the all-time lowest in the world at the moment. 70% of people are engaged in work. Actively engaged is only 13%. That means 7 out of 10 people who walk in are just disconnected from the work that they're doing. Real issue. So think about the performance improvement you could get if you just got more people actively engaged in their work. Even more fun, Bain & Company, big consultancy, did loads of research to find out, they went and asked companies, how well do you think you're servicing your customers' needs? And then they went and asked their customers, hey, you know that company you're buying products from yet? How well are they serving your needs? So, this is already solicitation time. So what percentage did you think of the company said, when they asked their customers, what a great job are they doing for them? Between 0 and 100%.
70.
70. Any more takers?
20.
20. Keep going. 80? Good. Well done. It's 80, right? What do you think customers said?
20.
20.
20. Keep going.
5.
5. Even worse. Almost.
20.
80 to 8. So when people talk about 10x, that's a 10x gap in knowledge or understanding between what companies think they're doing and the results they're actually achieving to their customers. It's frightening. So what I'm going to show you then is a couple of methods that I use. If anyone's read the book, we broke the sort of concepts into, orientating, how do you get people aligned, explore, how do you come up with new ideas, exploit, how do you optimize what you've got, and then ultimately transform. So I'm going to show some stories of companies that I'm working with in these sort of different domains, and some of the tactics that I'm applying that maybe you can go and try and apply in your own businesses out there. So I'm going to kick off with explore, and this is probably the biggest challenge. One of the first things I do with executives when I walk into the company is say, what are you doing? And they'll say, we've got loads of plans, everybody's in rooms, they're writing 100-page PowerPoint decks, we've got our annual budgeting planning cycle coming up, everyone's going to present at that, and we're going to fund 2 things for next year to drive innovation in the company. Rubbish. No hope. They're already dead. I say to them this, stop writing, start learning. I get the executives to start forming cross-functional teams themselves. The people who actually have to change the most are the people that lead the organization. That's leadership at all levels. Putting them in these cross-functional teams and they actually start to share knowledge. The amount of times I put a cross-functional group of one company in a room and people are introducing themselves for the first time is unbelievable. I would say 50% of the time that happens. Companies live in silos, they don't communicate together. Now, people I know from the Lean movement will be familiar with Alistair's business model canvas. Most companies don't even use these types of tools. They'll rather spend 200 pages on PowerPoint trying to build these decks. This is a simple, lightweight, you can have all the resiliency of the business model and map it out in 3 seconds. And the idea about these things is it's about building tools that they can use fast and context that they will change. The best measure for a business model canvas is how long since the post-it note that was put up was changed and new. If you put it up once and stick it on the wall for 6 months and it doesn't change, you're actually doing post-it note fallacy in theatre. It's bullshit. Sorry, I shouldn't say that word. Anyway, that's okay. Okay, good.
You can even swear to.
Alright, so it's really important to give people ideas that they can start to do this stuff. And one of the techniques then that's very important about this is experimentation. So what I've done, what I use is a term called hypothesis-driven development. Has anyone heard this term before? This is just basically about thinking everything you do is an experiment. Whether it's a process change, whether it's a product change, whether it's a tool selection that you're shooting for. So once I get them to map out their ideas, I actually build them another canvas to say, show me a hypothesis of this idea. What's the first thing that you want to try and test about it? And these are like simple things like, on the right, name the customer it's for. Show me a customer journey they go on. Where would they struggle? What's the technology part of it? And get them collaborating where they start to map out these ideas, almost like user stories, but they're hypotheses that they're going to go and test, to prioritize them, and then start to actually learn things about what works and what doesn't. So, when Eric Ries made this picture and made multiple millions of dollars as a result, the goal was not to actually make people think about something to build, something to measure, something to learn. The trick when you're doing experimentation is actually to go through these learning cycles as quickly as possible. In most cases, you actually don't even want to build something. The thing that's most important when you start this is, what do you want to learn? Not what are you going to build, what do you want to learn? So this is an expression of the scientific method, which is about making observations about the world around you, formulating those observations into a hypothesis, coming up with a way to test that hypothesis with an experiment, a piece of work to execute on your hypothesis, so you get some knowledge, some learning on the back end. That's what gets you into learning cycles. So when you see in Lean Startup, which is build, measure, learn, or Lean in the Deming cycle, which is plan, do, check, act, or any of these type of learning loops, they're just expressions of the scientific method. That's exactly what it is, and it applies to all parts of what you do. So what does the scientific method look like when you're a leader in an organization? Well, one of the most important things Toyota started off with was this concept of go and see. Also familiar for startup people would say, get out of the building. Basically, management by walking around. Go and understand what people are actually doing. Formulate ideas about what you think is happening, and then talk to people about what's really happening, and close the knowledge gap by going through that cycle. This is a really, really expensive example of an experiment, where we have somebody here, I don't know who it is, prototyping with bits of paper for the cost of $3, and a very, very expensive item, a cut-out piece of paper that looks like an iPhone, with laminate on either side. And I can start to find out and test what this product might look like and get feedback on it. I get executives when they come up with ideas to build these things, because it's a way that they can express what they're doing, and they can also start to learn what works and what doesn't. So this is like one of the largest travel companies in the world. They're based in the US and offices all around Europe. And the things that I started saying to them is, again, stop talking about ideas and start testing them. Optimize for actually finding out what works and what doesn't. This is another really expensive experiment. Over here we've got an iPhone, a peg, and a USB camera. Someone sitting in a coffee shop using a prototype to understand what works and what doesn't. Total cost of experiment, $5. Total learning that comes out of it, massive. You have an executive sitting there with an idea that they think is going to change their company, and customers say, I have no idea what this is. I don't understand how it works. The only way you can break people's mental models is they have to experience it. You cannot tell people what to think. They have to act their way to a new culture. They have to experience feedback from customers to say, it's not working. So when you start to do that, you can start to visualize where some of the challenges are. You can see here, green post-its are like stuff that's supposed to be tested and customers love. Orange are stuff that they didn't understand. Then start to use that to iterate to say, well, this is what we're learning. How are we going to incorporate that and move forward fast? The learning cycles you're going through here are multiple times a day. If you can get your teams, your executives to be part of that process, it's very, very powerful for driving things forward. One of the things then when we started to do these testing is we actually got teams who would set up stations right beside where they were working with live versions of the products that they're working on. So anyone who's walking around the entire organization can go and start to test some of the ideas that that team are working on in their agile sprint. Ideas they're thinking about building next week and they're currently building. They have this like honesty box, like a green and a red ticket. So anyone who could come by this team's area, they could play with the new design, write some feedback on a ticket and drop it in a box. At the end of the week, the team pick up the box, empty all the feedback, sort it against what they believe. They learn some good stuff, they move on. Interesting way that you can start to communicate what you're doing. The other thing I do is give execs these things. They're called idea cards. So it's basically a mashup of Marty Kagan's feasible, viable, whatever the other word is, thing. Dan McClure's pirate metrics. A little bit about value proposition canvas from Alistair Walder. And mash it into a card. Because people don't have ideas when you stick them in a room for 2 hours and say, go invent the future of the business. They have an idea when they're having a shower in the morning. They have an idea when they're walking through the office and they see something broken and a way to fix it. They have an idea when they're just doing natural things and they see issues. If they have a card where they can quickly sketch down what they saw, a potential hypothesis of a way to solve it, you can generate backlogs on a daily basis and start to capture really awesome ideas. This is 1 week after giving the executive idea cards, 200 ideas about ways to try and improve the business. What do you do then? Well, you start sticking them up on the wall and you show people all the potential opportunities or experiments or hypotheses about how you want to try and change the business. So this is an example over here on the left, which is just like tons and tons of ideas that everybody's having. And I get the whole team to meet here on a weekly basis and prioritize maybe 2 or 3 ideas that they want to test. Ideas that they might say, let's go and get some data on that. Let's build a small prototype on that. Let's run a short experiment on a process change. Then start to put it through a testing process. Everyone in the organization can walk around, see this up on walls, understand what's happening, high transparency, high trust, really interesting way when your executive team are running the ideas that they're trying to do in this manner. So what does it look like? So this is basically what any space that I want to work in looks like. There's no PowerPoint decks. There's no stuff hidden in SharePoint where it goes to die. It's all visible. Visual thinking is a really important part of Lean. So the more stuff you can make external and see it changing on a regular frequency, it shows that people are learning things. So what I get them to do at the top is, they're working on initiatives, is put up the big aspirational vision. What are we trying to achieve? What's our moonshot? What are some of the customer hypotheses that we have to try and get there? Big ideas that we might try and change the business, try and change the workflow, how things might happen. Break those down into design experiments. You can even see here, right? See the different fidelity on the left-hand side, how this looks all like high fidelity type stuff, and some of the stuff looks like 3-row float through it. That gives you a sense of how mature the idea is already. What kind of fidelity of testing you're doing. So you turn hypotheses into experiments to test, and then you start to capture the learnings of things that are working and use those in a story map, and understanding the data that you're going to use to try and change that. And the kind of results that I'm actually achieving for companies are actually outstanding. Outcomes are the most important thing that you can do in any business. When you're a consultant, when you start off, the one thing I would really encourage you to do from the start is get some really good understanding, not perfect, but good accurate measurements about some of the things that are happening. If you want to drive change, you need to come back to executives with outcomes that you have achieved. So for instance, it used to take us 8 weeks to deploy something. Now we can do it in 11 minutes. We used to have a conversion of 5%, now it's 10%. We used to have a transaction value of £5, now it's £20. If you can show outcomes, money is never a problem to be invested in. If you just talk to people about, I've got this great idea, just trust me, it's going to work out, that's not good enough. You have to give the same rigor about running your experiments. This is my hypothesis. Here's the experiment. Here's my success measures I'm going to achieve, I think, as a result of it. Let's run a small experiment and test it. And then you've got evidence to show things working or not. This company is called Travelocity. They're probably one of the largest travel companies in the US. Massive transformation. They just sold all their technology business to Expedia as a result of some of this. So that's some of the ideas around exploring new ideas, but I wanted to talk a little bit about acceleration. So when you're in a large organization, everyone says no innovation happens, which is absolute rubbish as well. Or they say, we want to be a startup. No, you don't. What you want is to have innovation running through the blood of your system. Everyone constantly experimenting, optimizing, improving things. The best example of this, obviously, is Toyota. Do people know who this person is? It's Toyota who came up with the idea of the Toyota production system. And everything he talks about in this world is about learning to see. So one of the reasons they have this concept to go and see for managers is actually to go to where the work happens and understand for themselves the problems workers are facing and coach the workers to come up with better experiments to improve what they're doing. So think about anybody here. If you have a problem and you ring your manager for help, what do you think is going to happen? Do they come down and ask how they can help? Do they come down and go, why are you calling me? I guess they do the latter. Right. But the fundamental thing, though, about what is really interesting in the culture of these people is they always have a growth mindset. They understand that what they believe work today will not work tomorrow, that it could be improved. And the funniest anecdotal story about this is when Toyota were having the massive performance increases relative to the US market, what they would do is they would invite the Americans in to come and see what was happening in their factories. And the Americans were like, this is great, they're giving away all their IP. So they would take photos of everything. Everyone's like, look, this is the cameras they've got, right, this is... And what they would do is then go back and try and recreate the exact same factories based on the photographs that they've taken and all the things that Toyota had told them. So what does that sound like to you?
Stupid.
Learn, like the quote in the beginning, that's a learn, but not learning.
That's it, yeah. Spot on.
Well, you stop thinking, you just stop.
Exactly. Why do you think Elon Musk publishes all the patents of all the Tesla machines?
So acceleration.
Makes them working harder to get the results.
Well, what he's doing is he's actually making more of a joke of the rest of the industry, because they have a culture of constantly experimenting and learning, just like Toyota did. So what the GM people will come in and take photos of everything to try and replicate the practices that they were running in Toyota. But 3 days later, the team would have come up with a whole new ideas to solve different problems and change their process. So they're learning constantly and improving. The work that they were doing yesterday, they aren't doing in a week's time, they're doing something different. When Elon Musk publishes all of his patents, Tesla are already 5 learning cycles ahead of what they've published to the world. So everyone's then, let's go copy what they're doing. But they've built a muscle to learn, not to just copy what they've been told. Now this is really important, because what you see when people have these agile or lean methodologies is they just copy what they're told is in the book. And you get stuck, because you're like, the book says we have to stand up every morning and take orders standing up, instead of sit there and solve problems about what we should be trying to do and ask ourselves, is this working or not? And it's one of the most fundamental pieces of all this stuff. If you're not experimenting on a process to make what your problem is better, you're just copying stuff, you don't understand why, and you're already dead. You're not learning, it's learned. So Toyota actually have a method for this. They call it the improvement kata, which again is another expression of how do you run an experiment. So they actually have a method where they'll set directions or challenges that they want to try and achieve. They'll understand the current condition that they're in, take measurements of what's happening, formulate target conditions or experiments to help them move towards in the direction that they want to do, and then come up with experiments to do this. This is just another expression of the scientific method, constantly finding ways to experiment and pick up challenges that they want to address. So one of the methods I do when I kick this off is actually this thing called the game plan, where I get people to sit down and say, right, who's the cross-functional team that's going to deliver this? What are some of the objectives or the goals that we're going to try and achieve by taking on this new piece of work? It might be we're going to try and reduce our time to deployment from 8 weeks to 11 minutes. It might be we're going to try and increase our conversion from 0% to 100%. And then what I do is start to map out what currently happens in the process. This is a company called Skyscanner's deployment pipeline 5 years ago. So from the moment they have an idea until they get it into production, it was taking them in the region of like 40 to 50 days for someone to have an idea and get it in front of production. And showing them ways that they could actually change that. Find all the bottlenecks, the people who work and collaborate on these things. You start to look at end-to-end flows of system. And this is where all the Toyota stuff comes from, a production line. Your idea in your head, as you get it in front of customers, is a production line. Who are all the people involved in that? What are the steps in the process? How long do they take? What's the wait time that stuff is sitting around? And how often is it actually complete? That shows you where all the rework starts to be. Now when you do this as a cross-functional group, people who work on different parts of the line start to understand the problems that they're causing or inhibiting other people across the company. So you stick them in a room again and everyone's like, hi, I've never met you, Mary. Hi, I've never met you, Bob. Well, that's funny because I come up with all the ideas that you actually have to build. This happens all the time. So you get them to start playing around with cards again, starting to map out what are all the steps in our process. What are the kind of people that are involved in it? What are some of the obstacles that you're feeling? How do we actually start to address them? Now the important thing about improvement kata is you set a target condition. Once you set a challenge like trying to reduce the speed of your build time, you understand your current conditions through value mapping. The target that you shoot for, this is really interesting. When I say the word target to you in the context of the company, you get scared. What if I said you need to set a target for yourself for the next quarter? What do you start thinking?
Set it low.
Damn right. So the challenge with target conditions in Toyota is they set targets that they actually don't know the answer how they're going to get there. Because when you put strain on the system of work, not the individual, the system of work, the process they're using, that's what surfaces obstacles that's stopping them get there. In Toyota, and And in high-performance organizations, they look for obstacles to address, not people to blame. And that's a massive transformation for most organizations to go through. Because once you can start set target conditions that you might know how to do, like we deploy every 8 weeks, now we're going to deploy every 2 weeks, how are we going to do that? People start to problem solve, they start to generate ideas. If you already know how to do it, the simple question is, why haven't you done it already? So when you start to get them to think then in a future mode, people actually start to engage, they're problem solving, they're coming up with good ideas. I get them then to start saying, well, how much of an uplift do you think that could be? An important part of an experiment, set a success measure before you run it, so you've something to test against. Nobody does this. They just go, oh, I'm going to make it better, I'm going to disappear for 2 weeks and work. Then again, start to socialize what you're doing with other people and get feedback on it. Start to engage more people in the organization. Then you've got to figure out how do I go from where I am to where I want to be. And this is where, again, I use this concept of hypothesis-driven development. I start to write stories in the context of experiments. I believe by doing this capability, I'll get this outcome, and start to define measures of success as I go along. This actually then starts to say, I'm going to design and run experiments correctly. I'm going to set success measures. I'm going to come up with an idea to prove something. I'm going to test it. This is an example of the type of stories I write. We believe, by showcasing work as soon as it's done, that it will actually reduce the time of stuff sitting in queues waiting around. And we'll know this is done when our cycle time goes down by 15%. That is an experiment. Not, as a person, I want to get better because my boss told me to. Like, what is that? Start being scientific about this stuff. And when you communicate like this, people then can start to figure out how they can do things better. And then what I start to do once I have the 2 value maps is I get everyone to generate all their ideas and start to prioritize them. What should we do now? What should we do next? What should we do later? And start to get people actually coming up with ideas about how we can run all these types of experiments. We can't do them all, but everyone gets to share the bigger direction about how they want to send their experiments. Putting the cross-functional team together and testing with the people it's designed for. If you want to do a process change, your customers are the people using that process. If you want to do a product change, your customers are the people who use that product. If you're getting a new tool for your company, your customers are the people that use that tool. If you are not involving them in those experiments, you're wasting your time. Don't go off and do projects in your own. But set boundaries around how long you're going to do it for, what the investment is, limit it. Because that forces you to create a fast feedback loop. And it also makes it safe to fail it. If you only run small experiments, it doesn't matter if they fail, because you always learn something. If an experiment for you is 5 months, $10 million, and 50 people, that's too big to fail. So everything that you're doing tomorrow, think about what's the smallest, fastest possible thing I can do to learn something. And then start to share all those lessons learned with people in your organization. Get more people involved in what you're doing. Build these radars. And then you can start to digitize them and put them in PowerPoints, and your boss will think they're really impressive. All the time it keeps changing. Now, next, later. I guarantee everything that you put up for the first time is wrong. Another important point about doing this work. Your first idea is not your best idea. Who thinks their first idea is their best idea? Thank you. At least you're honest. Yet every process we come up with in businesses is designed that the idea that we have is the best one and let's deliver it. The actual measure of progress in innovation is how many ideas you kill early, not how many ideas that you come up with are you delivering. Yet everything that we're measured on in the organizations is, I've got an idea, is it on time, is it on budget, is it on scope, and I deliver it 6 months later. High-performance organizations get excited when you come back and go, I've spent $1 and found out that's a crap idea, bin it. Spend $2, they've found another idea, it's not a good idea, kill it. Because they know they're moving closer to a better place. In most organizations you work in, how easy is it to stop a project that's failing? Has anyone ever stopped a project that's failing? Has anyone ever got rid of a feature that no customer used in a product?
Yes.
You know, like these are the sorts of things that just exist in our industry. You need to optimize for being wrong. How quickly can I find out if this is a bad idea? Not how quickly can I prove it's a good one. Big cultural change for most people. So the last bit is about transformation, because I think this is the funnest part. Every CEO briefing ever, what happens? Come on, imagine this is the CEO briefing and drag you all into the quarterly results. What am I going to say?
Profits, revenue.
Profits are up, yeah, very. No bonuses, okay. Well,
Employment
sadly,
satisfaction.
this is what they keep saying. We need to transform. What do you think they mean?
Make more money.
Make more money? Yeah, of course.
We're failing in our business.
Yeah, good, yeah. Who do they think needs to transform?
Day.
The customer.
You need to transform, not me.
You need to do your work. And
Great in my office. Right? And this again is one of the biggest problems.
Why are you all so cynical about these CEOs?
No, I'm just challenging these ideas, don't worry.
No, but it's now sort of it. We're almost, yeah.
So I'll tell you why this is actually a real issue as well too, right? The reason CEOs actually struggle is they're very bright people, because you don't get that job if you're not bright. But the quality of information that they get is so poor because people send them the news that they want to hear because they're afraid. They don't have good communication channels that they can find out what's going on, hence go and see is really important. If you don't have good information, you make bad decisions. People try to tell you the things they want you to hear, and then you make decisions based on what they've told you. So you're actually not helping the problem if you're not being transparent and giving them the right information. Not the information you think they want to hear, but the information that's true. And the other challenge in organizations is actually getting that information in the first place. So there's lots of factors.
Yeah, no, I just have some trouble with the cynicism about CEOs because I think it's easily said, it's not me who needs to change, you need to change. I doubt whether many of those CEOs actually feel that way.
But also even ask yourself that.
Yeah.
Right, like everyone in this room probably believes that they're doing the right thing,
Yeah,
and everyone is
that's
against them.
That's a good way to balance it there. Yeah.
And it's really important that. And the other challenge, what I also see is this, is that people think that they're going to change by having these big, massive change programs. So the concept is, hey, we need to transform. We're going to do a 2-year program. It's called Phoenix. Everyone's going to go and get trained in agile. You do a 2-day course. You're going to be certified Scrum Maniac. Somebody's going to make loads of money because you just went and paid them loads of money to certify you all, and not go through some sort of mental side. And now suddenly everyone is agile the next day. Sound familiar?
Is that how you get agile?
It's that easy. That's all you need to do. You can even become safe that way as well. Which is even scarier. But this is the challenge, right? This is what is happening. And most people in organizations know that if you just sit this out, they don't have to change, the company doesn't have to change, they just have to go through the motions and look like they're trying, and then tomorrow it'll slowly slip back to the way. Because people aren't actually experimenting. And this is one of the interesting things that John Shook observed when he looked in Toyota, is that typically we're told you need to change the way you think. If you change the way you think, then you'll change the way you act. Which is again ridiculous. You have to change the way you behave. And you do that by changing the way you work. So what Agile was actually trying to do is not tell you that you needed to look at the manifesto and value communication over documentation. It changed the system of work. And what I mean by the system of work is, previously you would have all these silos of information in your business. So to address that problem of handovers, you create a cross-functional team. So people have to communicate more frequently and make decisions. Instead of having these big, massive deliverables of doing some analysis for 3 months, building something for 3 months, testing something for 3 months, you did smaller pieces of work, but you did all those things in a compressed period. instead of trying to deliver once every 6 months, he started to deliver every 2 weeks. So you change the system of work, and as a result, people had to interact in a different way. And as a result of interacting in a different way, it changed the way they behave. So your job as a consultant, as a leader, is actually to focus on the system of work and change that, not try and change the people. That's where you actually have the most power. Because innovation isn't born in a room, it's born where the work happens. And that's what Toyota saw all the time. When people had issues on the line, they could pull an unbound cord, and a manager would come over and discuss with them a Socratic process of debate to say, what's the issue? What's the challenge you're facing? What's the current condition you're struggling with? What's the target condition you're trying to get to? What's the experiment you're going to run? How soon can I find out if that experiment works or not? Get the people running experiments. When you do that, people stop being in a, I just need to get through the next 2 years. They're constantly experimenting, coming up with ideas about how they can keep getting better. And when you create a system where people are constantly able to evaluate how they're working, try new things, it doesn't matter what's happening in the external environment and process technology or tools. Because you've got a muscle as a company that allows you to constantly adapt to changing conditions. If you're always experimenting, you're always learning, you're always adapting. Versus companies that are trying to copy what's in a book and was told what to do. Massive difference. And then leaders are not telling people the answers because nobody can have the answers anymore. They're asking better questions. They go to find out what's happening, and they start asking questions to help people who have the most context of solving this problem figure it out and get the information they need to do that. And Toyota do that using a technique called coaching pattern, which is 5 questions that they ask when they go around to see teams and how they're working. What's the target condition that you're trying to shoot for? What are you trying to do? What's the actual condition? Where are you currently at now? What's the obstacles you're facing? Oh, I'm struggling with collaboration across the team. I don't know how to get work done. Nobody's around on time. Okay, well you can't fix all of those in one go, so what's the first one you're going to focus on trying to improve? What's the experiment that you're going to run to do that? Well, actually, instead of waiting for all the stories to be signed off, as soon as we finish work, I'm going to pick up the story and I'm going to go and find the product owner and get them to review it and give me feedback straight away. Great, how soon can I find out? Well, we're just about to finish the story in a day, so I'm going to tell the product owner and stand up tomorrow that they need to be there and give me feedback on it. Ask better questions, people have the answers, you get the information that you need. It's a learning cycle. Plan, do, check, act. It's an experiment. It's a scientific method. So what does that look like in a large corporate? Well, it looks like this. This is Paddy Power Betfair. So they're the largest gaming company in the world now. They're worth about $24 billion. And showing all of this stuff, this is their entire portfolio. Everything that's happening in the company. What they're working on next, what they're working on now, what they've just done, risks and issues. All the cards are color-coded. Green if something just worked out, red if it's a problem. All the stories that they're working on, value stream maps, and all their KPIs down the bottom that they're shooting for. I get them to write transformational target conditions that they're shooting for across the entire piece. Things like customer goals they want. 80% of our customers are going to agree that the quality of service that we've done has gotten better. We're going to say that from the start. Get them to think about health. 80% of our teams are going to say collaboration has gotten better since we started doing this process. Transformational targets. If you're in a Gallup survey and 13% engagement, getting to 80, how are you going to do that? I don't know. We're going to figure it out. Performance improvements as well. And the idea is, as a result of doing all these types of things, you can start to create multiple feedback loops happening through your entire organization. Delivery teams running experiments, feeding that back up to departmental leads. Departmental leads running experiments, feeding that back up to the executive team. Executives defining outcomes they want, like we want to increase conversion by 50%, and teams figuring out how they do that. Not being told what to do, but given a mission to complete. And then get everyone together to actually talk about what they're doing, what they're learning. bring the executives along so they actually start to give feedback on what's happening. That's how you short-circuit the information problem. That's how you build trust and transparency. The best way to build trust is actually to get people working in an iterative way and frequently demonstrating progress. That's what Agile tried to do with working software. Every 2 weeks, show what you have done and get feedback on it. Similarly, when you're working on initiatives, show what you're doing. Show what you're doing to customers. Get people in front of your customers and show what you're doing. This idea then of having big visions and then testing your strategy with pieces of work and refining it as you go. Executives love this stuff. If you start coming back to them with information about what's happening, they can make better decisions. You build relationships and you start building them. And then using all the information to keep going through these cycles. This is what Paddy Power looked like a couple of weeks ago. This is like the entire portfolio of the whole company in one place. The CEO could walk down this hall and see a red dot on the card, understands what it means, go over and read it, see if they can help with it, and go and remove an obstacle or do a coaching session with somebody in the team. That's how you create high-performance organizations, where people are actually sharing information and moving at speed. And they are doing 30% year-on-year growth in terms of revenue, which is unheard of over the last 6 years. Like, unheard of. That's how they bought Betfair for $9 billion in cash. So this is and these ideas have existed forever. The other day I was like reading, has anyone ever read Built to Last? It's like 20 years old. And
it's such a show,
yeah, but like you could read this paragraph, this is 3M. This is the company that they designed a system of work to allow things happen. 20% time for innovation. That the executives actually weren't the people who said what needed to be done. They trusted teams to do it. But if you read this, that's revolutionary for 20 years ago, never mind today. So in conclusion, stop doing transformational programs. If you are in a company and someone is talking about a transformational program, kill it. Start getting people experimenting continuously all the time. The thing I'm doing now to try and change this, because I've been so sick of the model, why it's so broken, is I've set up a company called ExecCamp. Now what happens in ExecCamp is I get senior executives to leave their business for 4 to 8 weeks with the goal of trying to launch a new business to disrupt their existing company. Yeah. Totally blow the thing apart. Because the people who have the most influence in the organization are actually the people leading it. Now, executives need to get out of their comfort zone again and start to experience what it's like to do this work. They've read all the models, they've read all the books, they tell you they're doing agile, they tell you they're doing build, measure, learn, they tell you, but they're not. Until you put people, does anyone know the first time they did an experiment and the customer told them the idea sucked? Who's had that experience? They thought it was a good idea before they ran the test as well. That's the world people live in. You have to break their mental model by experiencing it, by learning, by doing. That's why one of the first things we always do in Lean Startup is when people come up with a great idea, we're like, great, now get out of the building and go and talk to people about it. Everyone always comes in, head down, goes, the hair idea. Yeah.
So why is it so difficult to embed this in the organization? You can do a cycle, you can do an ExecCamp, you can take it offsite, it's all great, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
But then where it goes wrong is that it's very hard to get that behavior embedded.
Agreed.
Why is that?
Yeah, it is hard because most of the things that leadership do is they go away for like a day, right? Where they go, it's like going to a conference. You go and you're like, oh, there's loads of cool stuff happening, it's great, yeah, I'm all energized. And then they come back into work and they're like, look around and they go, oh man.
Back to normal.
Right? And this is one of the reasons why I get them to leave for a long period of time, like 4 weeks, is because they have to immerse themselves in a new way of working. It's like if you try to learn an instrument, you don't learn anything in your first lesson. You're so like confused about what's happening. First time you drive a car, how can you learn anything then? So you have to sort of help people go through this extended process that they actually understand why they're doing these things and why these are obstacles. Because the real benefit then is when they go back to the company, they're not going back to change everybody, they're going back to coach other people on the experience they've been through. And that's a lot more powerful as a culture change mechanism. Not telling people what to do, but ask them better questions so they come up with good ideas or better experiments to run. That's the real trick behind this stuff. Because what happens is that execs get out of their comfort zone, they learn by doing, they come back and become coaches for their organization, they test loads and loads of ideas, and it also means the next generation of leaders get to run the company for a short period of time when the executives aren't there, so they get some experience leading the company in a safe-to-fail manner. It's very difficult to blow up a multi-billion-dollar organization in 4 weeks, guarantee you. But the growth people get out of that from having that experience is existential. And these are some of the actual testimonials that people are coming back with as a result of doing this. Seeing these things working in their organization, totally transforming themselves, and then they're the people with the most influence in the company to start coaching other people about how to change. So I'm trying to actually flip the whole model of change on its head, and that's the hypothesis. So I ran a little bit longer than I meant, so I apologize for that. I hope there was enough there to get people thinking a little bit. So I'm going to suggest that we take a quick recess, people can have a quick beer, and then we'll kick off a fishbowl and go from there. Sound okay?